You're listening to the Juju Writes Podcast. Keep it locked. Juju Writes. Juju Writes. It's the Juju Writes Podcast. Get it? Juju Writes. Juju Writes. It's the Juju Writes Podcast. Get it? Welcome back to the Juju Writes Podcast. It's your boy, your host, the man of the hour, Justin Juju Jackson. And listen, we made it to episode 2 of the Juju Writes Podcast, which I am so grateful and thankful for all 14 plays we got on episode number 1. Listen, I'm grateful for every play that I get. Honestly, truly, it's just me doing this podcast, doing all the work for it. So to see that it got played 14 times, man, that's 14 to a potential 1,000, potential 100, potential 50 even. So I'm very appreciative. So I just a reminder here on the Juju Writes Podcast, I talk all things movie, TV, Marvel, DC, and whatever the hell else I want to talk about. And that whatever the hell else this week will be, of course, my Writer's Corner segment that I do all the time. And this week I'll be doing anime, and I love me a good anime, but also I'll be doing a book and music shout out. So stay tuned for that. There's a really good book that's out that just came out by a black author doing black fantasy for black boys. Crazy. Can't wait to get into that. And also up and coming RnB act, man. I would consider myself an RnB connoisseur, a RnB first look kind of guy that is definitely on the newer trends as they up and up. So I find myself to be a person that discovers artists. I was on Kalani back when she was on the Spotify days. Janae Aiko back when she was on, not Sold Out. I think it's Sold Out. But, so I discover R&B acts, y'all. Just letting y'all know. I can share some playlists if y'all want to get into some real R&B. But yeah, so the main business this week, and the movie of the week is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, I have a full review, kind of a full review, spoiler review of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes over on the Juju Writes Podcast YouTube channel. But of course, the podcast is, the main business. So, I got to talk about that again. So, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes takes place 300 years after the death of Caesar. Now, I'm going to be honest, it took a lot for me to be convinced to come back to this franchise. I was a big fan of Caesar, a big fan of just that whole situation. And I don't know how interesting it would be 300 years after the initial war and all that type of stuff. But this movie throws us into the world of Caesar 300 years later. Cities are completely overgrown. Apes have developed their own societies. Some are more advanced than others, but they have their own culture, their own way of life. And not every ape does everything differently. So this follows the story of Noah, who is the son of an ape chief, who is, the keeper of birds. And we follow his journey as he kind of makes mistakes, gets wrapped up, involved with a human. His people get captured. He has to rescue them. And I feel like that the story is more so of an origin story, but you very clearly see the direction where they want this new story to go. And I find it to be very exciting. At least the last 20 minutes was definitely worth the watch. I'm all for some setup and a good origin story. Now, the big bad in this film is supposedly my guy Proximus. Proximus is this ape that he's kind of a mix of Julius Caesar from Roman history, and he's trying to replicate, our boy Caesar, who died 300 years earlier. Now, how would it? Now, your question. Now, if you're thinking, well, how would an ape have um, thought of or co-opted the identity of Julius Caesar? Well, of course, he had some guy who was reading him books and teaching him Roman history. Now, I don't know how much y'all know about Roman history, but Rome was one of the first colonizers. I would say them and the Persian Empire were some of the very first colonizers. Some would prefer the Persians over the Romans, just for the simple fact that under Persian rule, you could keep your religion and cultural identity, and you didn't have to. You weren't a Persian. If you were in the Persian Empire, you just were, in the empire, but you weren't Persian. Under the Roman Empire, when you came under Roman rule, you were a Roman, and you were expected to live and do as the Romans did. And so, a monkey, kind of an ape, co-opting that and having that intelligence, that man was out there colonizing. He was out there stealing people, bringing them back, and he's like, this is my kingdom. These are my people. Yeah, I know they had their own cultural identities and had their own way of life, but these are my people now. And you're not going to tell me any different. So he's supposed to be this big bad. They advertise him to be as such, but I wish they had shown more of his origin and how he came to be. But I guess the way that they want the trilogy to go, it really wouldn't have mattered too much if we saw the backstory. I think it would have been nice to give his character more meaning. I think he's just more so a proxy for where the rest of the story was going. So we got monkeys 300 years later, but what happened to the humans, right? What happened to the humans? Some humans have devolved in terms they don't speak, and they're of limited intelligence now. So you think, oh, all humans are just basically wild animals. But some humans still have their ability to think and process and compute. And I think that's the greater story that they're chasing here is, what are the humans doing and how do they play into the current role of the apes? And I think it comes to, a great resolution in a sense, that, and the point that Noah was making was, look, we just want to live our lives. Like, we don't want to be back in cages, and we don't want to be subservient to humans. We want to live side by side, truly. And the human perspective was told through this girl named May / Nova, because they named her Nova, but she was like, no, my name is May. So told through this perspective of May, it's just that, look, this was ours. The whole world was ours. It was our birthright. But I think that's funny for her to say, but then we were the ones who put ourselves in that own predicament. We got too ahead of ourselves, creating super viruses. COVID, creating super viruses that unknowingly, that we did not know would take us out the way that it did. So to say, oh, this was ours, and to have some type of entitlement, I think, after you lose the game, there's only but so much you can do to come back and try to tap back in and say, hey, this is mine. Well, you not only did you lose it, you forfeited it by your own stupidity and ignorance. So I thought that was just an interesting thing that they were setting up. And I'm very interested to see where the rest of the trilogy goes in terms of if we're going to continue following Noah. I know we're definitely going to follow May's journey and what the humans are to do. And I feel like the next movie is going to have more emphasis on the humans. And it'll be very interesting to see where that goes. So that was movie of the week, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. On the YouTube channel, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, I think. And I'm going to rethink that. I'm going to give it a 3.5. It was solid. The writing was solid, but it wasn't something I was like, wow, I need to rewatch that, or I think I missed some great symbolism. No, I don't think you're going to miss too much of anything after the first viewing. Like a lot of the Planet of the Apes, I think War of the Planet of the Apes was one I could rewatch, but the rest of them, don't really need it. So I'm going to give it a 3.5, which is still a solid score. I think most people would agree a 3.5 is like a B, and that's what it got as a cinema score. So we'll see how the box office is for this film. I suspect that it'll be very good since the last 3 movies made close to $1 billion, definitely over 500 million. So that's what I'm seeing for this one. And it's been a while. I think people love this franchise, and they have some loyal fans. And I would say my mom is one of those loyal fans. I was telling her, hey, we're going to see the new Planet of the Apes. And she was like, oh, I want to go see Planet of the Apes. I want to go to see Planet of the Apes. I was like, you like Planet of the Apes? She said, I saw the original. I was like, oh, okay. All right, I'm not mad at it. So they have some loyal fans and people who are very nostalgic for the series and will see it whenever or however they can. So that was the movie of the week, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. All right. So let's get into our TV show of the week. And man, me being a big Marvel fan, when there's a Marvel show on and it's really good, I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to keep talking about it. And X-Men 97 is one of those shows. And let me just say, this show just keeps getting better, guys. I mean, I'm just going to start with the overall rating. It's a 5 out of 5. Solidly. The whole series, and this episode 9 especially, gets a 5 out of 5. And I'm going to tell you why right now. So we get Storm's return to the X team in the X Mansion. If you haven't seen episode 8, I would. If you haven't seen the show, I definitely would. Even if you're not an X-Men fan, I think you're going to like this. This has a lot of good things in it that you can pull from. But Storm returns in a big fashion, and she's back in the X Mansion. Charles Xavier's there. I find Charles Xavier to be very, very annoying. I mean, the guy just talks. Like Magneto said in the episode, shut up, because the guy just talks. And he circles the same point. We're not going to get humans to respect us, and we're not going to get them to really not fear us. If we act up now, Magneto. And Magneto was telling Charles, listen, dude, come here. They murdered us in Genosha, and they try to murder us again with those super sentinels. So what are we to do? Are we to just sit here, and are we to go to the UN and say, look, we're people, don't hurt us? Oh wait, you did that already. Magneto did that already, and they still got murdered, and they still were victims, and they're still being hunted. So I don't think there's a solution where Charles could talk to anyone and change their minds by being the good mutants. Sometimes you need to wreck some stuff. You need to wreck some stuff and to get active to see change in a meaningful way, in the way that you want to see it. So Magneto was right in every way, shape, or form. And Charles Xavier, he could have stayed on that planet with his homegirl, man. He could have got married and lived a long life, because he neither helped the situation. I think he hurt it more than anything. I think he's just more so there for the comfort of his X-Men. Outside of that, nah. Won't give it as much of nothing. So Magneto, he's done. He's over it. He comes to Charles and's like, look, man, I'm gonna give you a chance for us to band together, and we can really just leave this place for dead. We can leave it for dead, and we can go and make our own stuff. We don't gotta worry about these humans. We don't gotta worry about nothing. And of course, Charles being Charles, his stance. Magneto made an open invitation to the X-Men. He's like, look, I was your leader. You know I was right. You saw the destruction in Genosha. Or will you come with me? And I thought he was going to get more takers, honestly, truly. But I think everyone has a trauma bond to Charles Xavier. So the only ones that joined him, Magneto, are the usual suspects. Rogue. Well, not the usual suspects. Usual suspect. Rogue. And then Sunspot. Sunspot joined, I think, because he had some trauma. He's like, my mom set me up with those super sentinels. So I'm like, I'm not going to give them another chance, which I respect that. You know what I'm saying? Your mama set you up. She left you for dead. She left you for dead. And, you know, I respect that, bro. Go with Magneto, man. The rest of the X-Men, they was like, you know, we're going to stick it out. We're going to try to shut this plot down. And, you know, that's what they did. The other X-Men's costumes, I think, were like obliterated. So they went to the OGs. And out of the OG costumes, I think Wolverine's looked the best. Jeans, not a fan. Cyclops, not a fan of the condom look. I like when he had the opening at the top and you can see his hair. The condom look is just, it feels so dated. It only works in certain context. I mean, X-Men 97, but when you already had a better look from jump, like, you know, why revert? But Wolverine had the best look. The brown and the yellow goes hard. But I think when he put on that brown and the yellow, Wolverine got extra aggressive. And I'll talk about that after this point. But the action in this episode is crazy. We get to see Storm work like we saw in episode 1. We didn't get to hear Cyclops say give him a forecast. He was somewhere else. But we got to see Storm work. And the way Jean has been treated this whole season, chef's kiss. Wow. Because in the original, excuse me, guys, in the original, Jean would faint. She would just faint every battle. Every time she did something significant, she would just faint. And you'd be like, she's of no use. She's more of a liability than anything, especially when she tried to kill people when she was in Phoenix form. So there's like no point in trying to and bring her on missions because she ain't worth nothing. But this Jean, she talks her stuff and she backs it up. One of my favorite moments was when Storm was giving Jean a pep talk, and then Jean was like, yeah. They was hyping each other up, and then Jean was like, make them mind your weather, sister. I was like, whoa, mind your weather. Then Storm was like, make them weather your mind. I said, Bo DeMayo. If you don't know who Bo DeMayo is the writer and showrunner who is now fired. I don't know what he did. And I don't know, it must have been really bad because this show was gas. And Marvel know the show's is gas. But I don't know what he did, but they fired that man. But his writing, wow, chef's kiss. That writing was dope. That was one of my favorite moments. And the way that Jean was just going toe to toe with what's the old boy name? I can't remember the villain. It's the villain who copied her, who cloned her, and made Madeline Pryor. Yeah, that dude, real weirdo. But she was going toe to toe with him, man. I respect it until Cable jumped in. Like, what? Where did Cable come from? Why is he turning on Jean? I know why he turned on Jean, but she was doing real good until he hopped in, man. So yeah, they were going toe to toe with that. But then the part that stood out for me was that the X-Men had real smoke for Magneto. Like, they was really trying to rough my man's up. Like he just didn't save y'all multiple times. Like, why are y'all roughing up Magneto? And then Wolverine was just so aggressive. It's like, yo, Logan, you're doing the most with this man. Shocking moment. This is like a super spoiler. So if you don't want to listen, you might want to fast forward. But when Wolverine stabbed that man, I was like, Wolverine, I thought we was just trying to, keep him busy. We're not trying to kill nobody. Man, Wolverine said, forget all that, man. I'm here for business and I'm going to stand on it. And that's exactly what he did. That's what he did. And he stabbed that man. Now Magneto was like, bro, like, get off of me. Wolverine was not going for that. So much so that Magneto pulled the adamantium out of this man, like extracted it from his body. And I don't know where it's going to go. I feel as though that we're going to have a time jump somewhere, somehow, because the way that episode ended, it's going to need a time jump to rectify, because Jean got blasted away. Wolverine tried to kill Magneto. Magneto definitely messed up Wolverine. Charles Xavier got knocked out. Storm got knocked out into the water. Old boy who held Storm, can't remember his name. But old boy crashed in an X-Jet. I don't know where Hank McCoy went. Don't remember. Rogue still up there. Can't remember where Nightcrawler was. No, right, Nightcrawler was up there with Hank. And I don't know. I can't remember what happened. Can't remember, but man, that's crazy. So this week's episode 9 was crazy. Super crazy as hell. Episode 10 is going to be a nail biter to see how they rectify or don't. We got multiple seasons. They might leave us on a cliffhanger. I hope they don't, but you never know with Marvel built a whole brand off of that stuff. For real though. But check out X-Men 97 if you haven't. Great show. Of course, it's Juju Writes Podcast where I talk about that stuff all the time. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, check out the show. Stay up to date. All right. So now we're in the whatever the hell else I want to talk about section of the show. And first, I have to highlight the anime of the week, My Hero Academia. If you are not on My Hero Academia, you are late to the party. We are on season 7, episode 2. And man, this show continues to blow me away. Now, first thing, if you're one of those manga readers, listen up. Stop spoiling the stuff in TikTok comments and making TikToks with spoilers for the manga, because the show is now relevant again. You do not have to do that, because we just want to see it play out in anime. We don't want to see all the spoilers. We don't want to know what you know. We don't care. Okay? We don't care. We just want to see it play out in the beautiful animation with the American voice actors who are, quite frankly, blowing it out of the park. But this episode 2 of season 7, we are still in the battle with Star. With Star, who is the number 1 American hero. She comes over and she's duking it out with Shigaraki, man. She's duking it out. But like, Shigaraki is crafty. Shigaraki's not really Shigaraki. He's one for all. All for one? All for one. He's all for one. Man, Shigaraki is crazy. And I just don't really believe that there's no way. I just believe there's no way that Star should have lost to Shigaraki, because she lost. But I feel like she set him up in a good way to kind of limit his power. Her sacrifice is definitely one of the greatest things in terms of events in the show, just being that she was inspired by All Might. I wish she had more screen time, because she was like teased all last season of being like this major hype beast, and then we get 2 episodes about her. Wop 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 wop, and and she went out the way she went out, but she set Deku in Class 1A up for some good stuff. At the very end of the episode, we finally get to see Class 1A again. Finally. And it seems like they're ready to go to war. Yeah, they're ready to go for war. They got 1 week to train some more with All Might, and they're ready to go to war. But one thing I love about Deku in Class 1A, they never run from a battle or a fight. They've always been ready to step up in the paint. And it seems like Class 1A is Japan's last hope. I don't know what happened to Shiketsu High or Class 1B. Don't know where them people went at all. But it seems Class 1A is standing in the paint on this one. And, I've seen some things due to the spoiling manga readers about Deku and his trajectory, my guy, sorry. About Deku and his trajectory, and he is the greatest hero of all time. It's alluded to throughout the entire series, but he is the greatest hero of all time. And I just can't wait to see what we get. Every week, every Saturday is a great day to be a My Hero fan. Also, Demon Slayer is coming back. I think it's for Hashira training arc. We're getting a Hashira training arc. If you're watching on YouTube, you see my Demon Slayer backdrop with all the Hashira on it. Demon Slayer, like My Hero, is definitely peak anime. Like, I think they technically classify it as new gen. But Demon Slayer is like that. My boys Zenitsu and Tanjiro and Inosuke handle business. They don't even need a Hashira. They don't need it at this point. They're fire. Tanjiro didn't even need Inosuke and Zenitsu. He had Nezuko and oh boy. That's it. And he made do. And where the last season left off, fire. I didn't go see the movie where they had the tie-in, because they always kind of do that, where they just release a movie, have a tie-in where it ties in. You show like the first episode, 30 minutes of the next season, which is fine, but I haven't seen it. So when I watch it for the first time, I'll be watching it for real. So I'm excited for Demon Slayer to come back. That's dope. So now we moving on to the Writer's Corner, where, I talk about my writing. Right now I'm currently writing a screenplay, a book, just a screenplay and a book right now. Last week I talked about, I had one that was getting feedback. This week, in the middle of my wonderful work week, I get struck with an idea. And I want to talk about the concept of getting your idea to the page, and personally how I like to outline projects. So, of course, I'm in the gym, like I'm always in the gym, where I get these crazy great ideas. And one pops up in my head for basically a sci-fi time travel thriller that is about climate change, father and son relationships, redemption, love, of course. You can't have a story without love. Revenge, even. And it's a great one. I liken it to Everything Everywhere All at Once, just like how they do like the dimension jumping, but there won't be any dimension jumping in this. More like time travel, and it won't be a whole lot of it. But because the higher concept you get with your ideas, the harder it is for a studio to want to take a chance on said project, because it will probably likely be expensive. But forget it. This is going to be a spec script for me, just to submit to stuff as like my original writing. So I get my idea. First things first, you want to get your idea. You want to know the middle, beginning, and the end. The rest of the stuff you can fill out later. But I like to name a character. I like to get the opening sequence down, and basically I want to get my ending, because you don't want to write and get to this ending that is just unsatisfying and that you didn't account for. So now you're trying to go back into your screenwriting and fix some things so that the ending you came up with 2 months down the line makes sense. No, you don't want to do that. You want to have it charted out. Whether I keep a notebook that has all of my ideas in it. I write out potential storylines. I write out all types of stuff just to make sure that it's right and that it makes sense before I put it into Writer Duet for to get the script churned out. So you want to have your idea. You want to have just like the general plot, 2 characters, the general theme, and what story you're trying to tell. Because you can't write something if you don't know the story you want to tell. And it's not going to be very good. So you want to know what story you're trying to tell. And I tell other new writers on TikTok or Twitter. I have a lot of interactions with writers on Twitter. Well, and we go back and forth, because when I posted my red list results, I got a lot of questions on like, oh, how did you get the script to the red list, blah, 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 blah. And I shared a bit about my outlining process, because I feel like that was the anchor throughout the writing process that made the whole thing easier. And in that outlining process that I mentioned, having the beginning, the middle, and the end, one character named, and then an opening sequence. Then from there, you can fill the rest in, because that you want to have some gray space to play in, so your imagination, because sometimes you just think of things and that are just infinitely better than what you were going to put in anyway. So I outlined that idea that I was talking about at the gym, and it's now lives on the page. And I'm excited to get into that. I think it could be really good. All writers think their ideas could be really good, but I think this one could be really good. Just saying. But that's just me. I know I mentioned earlier that I was going to do a book and music shout out. So for the book shout out, I've been following this author for a long time. He's been promoting his book like crazy. I think since November, he's been promoting his project, which is dope. All artists out there, promote your stuff. Post your music, post your book, promote your stuff. No one is going to go as hard for you as you are for you, okay? No one is going to give you a silver spoon and say, hey, we want to manage your social media so we can promote you. No, promote yourself. Nobody's going to care more than you care about your art. And so this author, Ladarian Williams, cool guy. His story is actually very, very awesome. And I hope to get him on the podcast one day. Fingers crossed. Maybe on his next book release. Fingers crossed. But Ladarian went over to Hollywood to become a screenwriter. He's a playwright. And that was like his first bread and butter. And he came out with this book. I think it came out on Friday, called Blood at the Root. Blood at the Root is about a teenager named Malik who has, been through great tragedy and discovers his ancestral magic. I think Ladarian has likened it to like hoodoo, and has different magical elements to it, where the families in his southern town have magic, and Malik gets invited to this magical HBCU called Cayman, and I think the plot of it goes where he learns magic, and of course there's just going to be a conflict. I have the audiobook. I have yet to pick up the physical copy of the book, which I plan to do this week. And as I read it, I'm going to give you guys the real deal about it. But what I've listened to so far with the audiobook and what Ladarian has told us about it, great work. I think if you have any interest in this book and the hype around it, you can go to Ladarian's Twitter. I think it's just Ladarian Williams, and his TikTok, Ladarian Williams. He promotes his book and he goes live. You can ask him questions if you're thinking about writing a novel. And he really connects with people who follow him, and he's very humble, very grateful guy, and he promotes the hell out of his stuff, and I admire that widely, because I want to be more proud and promote my things, because nobody is gonna love it more than me. Nobody's gonna care more than me. So that's just me. So, music shout out from an up and coming R&B artist named Gabrielle Lynn. Now look, I'm like the normal person. I go on to Spotify, I click shuffle, and that's the day. Well, I have Spotify and Apple Music, but more so Apple Music, and I shuffle. So, I believe I'm one of Spotify's test listeners, beta listeners, where they but they recommend to me newer artists who are growing. And Gabrielle released a new song this past week called Life's Been Crazy. And I listened to it and was immediately struck by the authenticity, and not only the lyrics, but in the delivery of the vocals. And it was very authentic and simple, and I really connected to that song. She has other music on Spotify and Apple Music, which is more dancey, more pop, some R&B tracks, but that didn't connect with me in the way that this song did. And she has an upcoming project coming out, and I hope more of the project has more of songs like Life's Been Crazy, because it just oozes with that authenticity that you feel like an artist is about to take off when they get to this level of authenticity. I saw it with Kalani. I saw it with Janae. I saw it with artists like Coco Jones. Coco's authenticity was seen more through her social media presence, her postings, her appearances. Everyone loves Coco because they love Coco, not because her music is dope too, but we love Coco. And if you can connect, and I think That's what more music execs and more executives in the entertainment industry need to understand, especially with my generation, Generation Z, is that we connect. We truly want to have a connection to our artists, our entertainers, our authors, people we consume media from. That's why the influencer is such a thing, because that's how we connect and consume media. We want to have a connection with these people. We want to know these people. Give us the allure. Give us the, the mystery. I feel like Zendaya does that pretty well, but also Zendaya gives off girl next door vibes. Like, she could be my neighbor, like very chill. Like, and we love Zendaya. We go hard for Zendaya. And having that duality of likability, authenticity, and relatability are things that authors, people who are going to just be public facing, like actors and musicians, need to have to really grow. And I think Gabrielle has it. And I say this as candidly as I can. So definitely check out Life's Been Crazy if you're an R&B person. Even if you're not, you might just listen to it and say, damn, she's spitting. Like, she's talking that stuff. She's not rapping, guys. She's not rapping. But she is just telling of her experience. And that's what I like about it. So this has been episode 2 of the Juju Writes Podcast. I'm coming to you every week, guys. Every week with stuff. So thank you. Just remember to follow the show. Download it. If you want to see this on video format, head over to the YouTube channel. Also have YouTube exclusive, like shorts, reviews, all that type of stuff. So thank you for listening to episode 2 of the Juju Writes Podcast, and keep it locked. Juju Writes. Juju Writes. It's the Juju Writes Podcast. Get it? Juju Writes. Juju Writes. It's the Juju Writes Podcast. Get it?